Good afternoon, I'm DK Ross. Welcome to TTT Live. A team of experts visited the FSO Nabarima yesterday to inspect its stability and whether it is posing a threat to the environment. Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs Franklin Khan and Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Dr. Amy Brown are about to host a press conference to update the nation on the details of the findings of that team. And we're bringing you live coverage of the press conference on TTT, Talk City 91.1 FM, and TTT Live Online. We now join the press conference.
3, 2, 1, go.
Good afternoon. I am Karan Israel, Corporate Communications Officer at the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, and your host for today's media conference, which is being held to provide an update on the FSO Nabarima. Today, the media will be briefed by Senator the Honorable Dr. Amy Brown, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, and Senator the Honorable Franklin Khan, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries. I will now invite Senator the Honorable Dr. Amy Brown, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, to start today's briefing. Minister.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. It is an honor to be joined with my colleague, cabinet colleague, the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, the Honorable Franklin Khan. We have two hard-working permanent secretaries here from the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs and the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, and some of the senior staff. And of course, members of the media who are joining us in the main via a virtual platform. The subject of this afternoon's media conference is the determined and responsible actions of the government of Trinidad and Tobago in response to public concerns about an oil storage vessel called the FSO Nabarima. I want to emphasize from the onset that the vessel at reference is a Venezuelan asset that is located and has been located in Venezuelan territorial waters. In response to public concerns about the safety and security of this vessel, the government of Trinidad and Tobago initiated immediate and then consistent action. There was immediate communication with the government of Venezuela, with their Minister of Foreign Affairs, with their ambassador in Port of Spain, and also with their minister with responsibility for energy. There was immediate communication at multiple levels via multiple channels, but with one focus, and that was to communicate to the government of Venezuela the concerns of Trinidad and Tobago with respect to the FSO Nabarima. In response, we got written responses from Venezuela providing us with assurances about the condition and safety of the vessel. The response from this government was to go further and to request verification. The verification that we have pursued was the mounting of an expert mission, an expert inspection team by the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, and we sought the opportunity for this team to visit the Nabarima themselves and to report back to the government on the details of the vessel to better inform our subsequent actions. We initially identified from the Venezuelans a date of September 28th for that visit. Unfortunately, just before that date arrived, the Venezuelan authorities indicated that they were not able to proceed with that initial arrangement. We got back to them and we said, well, we still, because of the urgency and the pressing public attention and genuine concerns, we would like to do a flyby of the Nabarima, which still demands authorization to cross the border and with our team and equipment and fly around the vessel or sail around the vessel. The response, unfortunately, at that time was that Venezuela could not authorize that request, and they stuck to the date of the 20th of October. We consulted, the members of the government consulted. Minister Khan has been very instrumental in this, and we determined we would we would put everything in place to ensure that the date of October 20th would be, that visit would be executed professionally, thoroughly, and that we would make it a success in terms of doing the validation and verification that our people require. In the interim, there has been significant diplomatic activity. There have been meetings, both physical, virtual, and telephone calls with the ambassador of the United States in Port of Spain. There have been interactions and consultations with the CARICOM Secretary General, with the ACS, that's Association of Caribbean States, Secretariat, the ACS Secretariat, with CDEMA, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, with legal experts, with a range of legal experts. And this matter, from the diplomatic side, has been the subject of 7 diplomatic notes coming from the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. So that is why I reference determined, responsible, and focused efforts on the part of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Minister Khan will give a comprehensive report on the work of his expert team and the feedback that has been provided and some of the subsequent actions. But I just want to close by addressing a few concerns that have come to us. There's been a lot of social media activity, which is a good sign in a democracy. It means that the public takes environmental concerns very seriously. But one that caught my attention was a repeated remark that we must just go and seize the vessel. Now, obviously, that would be a violation of international law and would have plunged Trinidad and Tobago into an intractable situation. Another was that we should just forget about sanctions and go and empty the vessel ourselves. And that obviously was a lay person's and really an absurd proposition. And then the other comment that was often repeated was, do something now. The government must do something now. But as I have demonstrated, and Minister Khan would further demonstrate, the government has been doing its part and been taking dedicated and consistent effort. A lot of diplomatic activity, by definition, is not done in the full glare of the public, and there's often use of more quiet channels to get our objective achieved. And to a large extent, the objective has been achieved, and we now have, besides Facebook photographs and videos, we now have concrete evidence and observations by our own people, our own eyes, and our own experts. So, just to close my piece, I would say that this government does care about the environment, and we continue to demonstrate that. We share the concerns of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and we continue to take decisive, responsible, and focused efforts to ensure that every step we take is based on evidence and fact. And speaking of evidence and fact, I would now turn over to a really central figure in this effort, my cabinet colleague, the Honorable Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister Bong, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. As Minister Bong indicated, the FSO Nabarima is situated in Venezuelan waters. I'm just contextualizing this. It is located 17 miles west of the international border between Trinidad and Venezuela in the Gulf of Paria. Obviously, we have no jurisdiction in that space. But just to give you some information on the FSO Nabarima. The FSO Nabarima is what is called FSO, a floating storage and offloading unit. It stores oil from the Coro field, which is located on the Venezuelan side of the Gulf of Paria. This oil field is a joint venture between PDVSA, the National Oil Company of Venezuela, and an Italian multinational called Eni. I think the ratio is 70-30. Normally, the oil field produces the oil and it is stored in the FSO. Citizens may not be aware of this, but that FSO has been there operating for over 10 years. When the FSO is filled, a tanker comes alongside it. The FSO Nabarima pumps its crude into the tanker, and the tanker ships it away for export. That has been going on continuously for over 10 years, without any fuss, without any rancor, without any glamour, without any media coverage. What has happened is that since the US imposed sanctions on Venezuela, where they cannot export their crude, that activity had to stop, because Eni and its joint venture partner were not allowed to export Venezuelan crude based on the sanction. Another piece of fact that the citizens of Trinidad may not know is because that production has stopped, the FSO Nabarima has been filled with approximately 1.3 million barrels of oil for over 9 months. And that is where the challenge lies. The Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries was alerted by a local environmental group via correspondence dated August 24, 2010, and other social media posts of a tanker, well, that's what they call it, a tanker, but it's an FSO, located within Venezuelan waters with a total capacity of 1.3 million barrels, which was allegedly tilted and at risk of capsizing. There was a lot of footage on that, a lot of social media posts. It further indicated that the tanker, again is the FSO Nabarima, was suffering seawater ingress, possibly resulting in an 8-degree tilt, which placed the vessel at risk of becoming submerged and spilling its cargo of 1.3 million barrels of oil into the Gulf of Paria, obviously creating a major environmental challenge. Minister Wong went through the diplomatic processes in which we asked the Venezuelan to verify. The Venezuelans have always said that the vessel is stable and there is no immediate threat of any major environmental disaster, but they did in fact concur with us that to test the veracity of what they were saying, they would allow a technical team to visit the FSO Nabarima. Mr. Wong indicated the processes we went through to that. I want to inform the public that the team of experts was as follows. The team was headed by Mr. Craig Boodoo, a Senior Petroleum Engineer at the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. Lieutenant Isen Warner, officer in the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, an engineering officer and a mechanical engineer by training. And one Mr. Michael Daniel, a Port State Inspector, IMO certified from the Maritime Services Division of the Ministry of Works and Transport, which has jurisdiction over maritime matters. Mr. Daniel is an expert in ship stability and matters therein. So we had a team of professionals, experts representing the government of Trinidad and Tobago in their various categories of responsibility. The team left on Tuesday, as is public knowledge by now, and they went via National Helicopter Services Limited helicopter. They left from Piaco. They landed at Juan Miguel Valdez Airport in Guerrilla. From there, they were taken by another PDVSA chopper and landed on the Nabarima. This proved a positive response because while they were on the chopper, they asked to do a fly around of the vessel for an aerial panorama to see if the vessel was in fact tilted. And their information from their report is saying that there was absolutely no tilt of the vessel that was recognized, and the vessel was totally horizontal. The other matter to take into consideration is that what they have said is that if there was any significant tilt on the vessel, the helicopter would not have been able to land on the deck, because a helipad has to be totally flat for a proper helicopter landing to take place. So we now move on to the actual site visit on the FSO Nabarima. To show you the respect that was shown to the Trinidadian delegation, a very high-powered team of Venezuelan officers greeted our party. The team was headed by the Vice President, by Mr. Randa Pena, the Vice President of International Relations, and also the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Bolivian Republic of Venezuela. That's virtually a cabinet position. The party also included Vice President of Commerce and Supplies, a gentleman called Carlos Antonio Jose Perez Suarez. Obviously, the vessel captain, Captain Carlos Gonzalez, was there as the receiving party, and the Marine Superintendent, which is the most important technocrat on the vessel, the FSO Nabarima, Engineer Benito Romeo. So the party that was responsible for the tour was very well put together, I must say, and included people who knew what they were about and had the level of authority to do the tour. The team spent approximately 3.5 hours or more on the vessel. They made tours of the engine room, the generator room, the boiler room, the machine control room, the tank control room, the main deck, the pumps, the bilge tank, and all relevant areas on the vessel. Their report has indicated that everything seemed to have been fine. Just to go through some more details in the engine room, they said there was no evidence of water ingress or evidence of water presence. The housekeeping was very good. In the generator room, steam from the boilers were used to run the generators. 2 generators were operational, 1 was on standby. They were all in working condition. In the boiler room, the same situation arose. In the machine control room, all operators were present, together with computerized equipment to monitor the electrical system of the ship. The tank control room, it was a large area and co-located with a machine control room. All systems appeared to be functional, with very good housekeeping, well lit and clean. The main deck obviously had some corrosion because it's the main deck in an open marine environment, and there was maintenance work taking place on the main deck. The pumps, most of them were operational, some was being repaired. The bilge tank, everything was fine. So all in all, the maintenance of the vessel met the satisfaction of the team. I just want to draw your attention to one very important matter. When this matter arose in September, with the footage of the tilt, and there was also some videos of water entering the ship into the engine room, for those of you who may recall. The Venezuelans were very open with these 2 events. They call it unwanted event number 1. With regard to tilt, they said there was a loss of stability with a negative trim of 3.5 meters, which is the tilting of the vessel, and a 7-degree list to the starboard side due to failure of the ballast system valves. They acknowledged that. Unwanted event number 2, the entry of unwanted water in the bilge in the 4th deck of the engine room due to valve failure associated with the bottom suction and emergency bilge draining system. The flooding of the engine room led to some catastrophic failure of a number of electrical motors. So they were honest. They said these were the incidents that took place in early September, and this is what we have rectified since then. They didn't hide anything. So the other inspections that were carried out, we were allowed to take samples of the crude, so it can be fingerprinted here in Trinidad and Tobago. They showed us their oil spill response plan, which we found to be an acceptable document. And at this point in time, I will also want to let the nation know that there's an oil spill contingency plan, which is a treaty agreement between the government of Venezuela and the government of Trinidad that covers the Gulf of Paria. And that oil spill contingency plan could be invoked by either party if they perceive a real threat existed to a major environmental catastrophe happening in the Gulf of Paria. We were almost bullied by certain forces to invoke the oil spill contingency plan, but we had no technical basis to so do. And that is why this trip was so important, to go and assimilate the facts as they are on the ground. Other observations that was noted. They said the vessel anchorage system was designed to withstand the most severe weather events associated with the region, that is hurricanes. The representative also indicated that they have emergency procedures in place for such an eventuality. So, all in all, the team was happy that the vessel has no tilt, the vessel was not taking in water, and all the operating systems were functioning at a level that was acceptable. I now come to the major conclusions. Conclusion number 1, the FSO Nabarima is upright and stable with no visible tilt, and there is no imminent risk of tilting or sinking at this time. Let me repeat that. The FSO Nabarima is upright and stable with no visible tilt, and there is no imminent risk of tilting or sinking. 2, there is no water ingress on the vessel visible to the team. So the ingress of water that was reported in early September no longer exists. 3, and this is a very important point, it was confirmed from the representatives that during the incident when the engine room was flooded, there was no mixing of oil and bilge water. The oil did not leak from the containment tanks. What this implies, ladies and gentlemen, is that the double hull, because it's a double hull vessel, are intact and poses minimum risk of any oil spills at this time, because that is where the oil is stored, in a double hull. Also, the team confirmed that major maintenance is ongoing. Pumps and electrical motors are being repaired and or replaced as needed. And they conclude that based on the above observation, the current maintenance program utilized on the ship is quite satisfactory to them. However, the team made some recommendations. They first stated that while they are very impressed with what they saw, and they see no need for major concerns or to raise any red flag, they did in fact indicate that through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we should request of the Venezuelans that the technical team, either the same team or probably with some minor changes, should be asked to revisit the vessel in about a month's time to make sure that everything remains as they were, so that there will be a continuity of monitoring. Now, the final point I want to deal with is that you would have seen in the newspaper reports yesterday and today and on social media that the Venezuelans have started to offload the vessel. There are reports based on international shipping intelligence that 2 vessels have lined up virtually alongside the Nabarima, offloading its crude. This has been verified by the team that is out there. What is happening as we speak is there's a barge that crude oil is pumped from the Nabarima into the barge. The barge takes it to a tanker called the Incaro, which is a tanker under U.S. sanction, which means that tanker cannot leave Venezuelan waters, which means that obviously that they're moving the crude from the Nabarima into another location in Venezuela, very likely onshore. The only challenge we saw to that is that because these vessels have such small capacity, the barge only has a capacity of 30,000 and the Incaro has a capacity of 300,000. It will take an inordinate long time to empty the vessel. We have calculated it will take about 35 days. While the process of emptying the vessel is safe, don't get me wrong, but the extended period of time which this activity will be taking place will in fact pose some sort of challenge that we need to monitor. And it's in that context we intend to ask the Venezuelans if they can get larger vessels to offload the crude from the Nabarima, but obviously that will depend on the resources that are available to them. So to summarize, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, members of the media, I think I am very pleased, so is the government of Trinidad through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs also, that the report of the technical team has put a relatively positive, not spin, very positive perspective of what is transpiring out there. I know the nation has been very antsy and quite concerned, and with just cause, because an environmental disaster of the scale that was envisaged obviously would have hurt Trinidad significantly. The results of the team has indicated that a genuine risk of that nature does not exist. However, we will continue to be vigilant in our communication with the Venezuelan authorities to make sure that the situation as we currently see it as of now, yesterday, today, and onward, we continue to monitor it in a very diplomatic way to make sure that nothing untowards occur between the offloading of the vessel. Bearing in mind, to close off on Minister Amy Bong's point, is that this is a matter under the jurisdiction of a sovereign state. We are a friendly neighbor with concerns, and I think we have been treated with respect, and I expect that Trinidad also treats the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela with due respect. I thank you very much, and I think we are open for questions now.
Thank you, Ministers Brown and Minister Khan. At this point, we would like to invite questions from the media. To do this, we would like you to indicate that you have a question, and we will acknowledge and invite you to proceed. Remember to please indicate your name and the media house that you belong to.
You sure it working?
You could.
Hi, good day. Thanks very much. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you please indicate your name and the media house you belong to?
you mentioned the oil spill contingency plan. Would you mind giving us a few kind of general overview of it? Of course, we're not experts. If you could just a gist of what the process entails. Thank you.
Well, the oil spill contingency plan is if a genuine environmental risk is suspected or identified, or more particularly if there is in fact an ongoing environmental issue like a spill out in the Gulf of Paria. There are certain protocols that we can initiate. Obviously, it involves mobilization of environmental cleanup, how to alleviate the spill, setting of booms, treating it with chemicals and what have you. Especially if it is cross-border jurisdiction. Once either party invokes it, obviously with the approval of the other, you can cross the border without any restrictions in terms of the environmental cleanup and the environmental containment. Because in an environmental matters, just like COVID, it respects no international boundaries. So if there's an oil spill in the Gulf of Paria, it can affect both Venezuela and Trinidad. And let me just draw a reference to one point. When Petrotrin had a major oil spill in 2016, Venezuela was severely affected. The whole of Guaria was polluted. And the Venezuelan offered to clean it up at their cost, which is an indication of the friendly relationship with the both countries. So I just want to put that on record because it is very, very important. Because we have in fact polluted Venezuelan territory in a significant way during that 2016 Petrotrin oil spill.
Members of the media, remember to please provide your name and the media house you belong to before proceeding with your questions.
Sorry, just one more question. I noticed a lot of other Caribbean countries expressed concern. Jamaica has also reported on the event. I guess this would be addressed to Dr. Brown, from a international perspective, how would such a spill be addressed, from a CARICOM perspective? Do you have any insights on that? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Thank you for your question. That really was the subject of some of our consultations with the CARICOM Secretariat and CDEMA, which is the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. And yes, there are a number of eyes in CARICOM on the situation internationally as well. We've done our best to maintain communication with all our regional partners, and what I can tell you is that there is a degree of gratitude that has already been expressed to Trinidad and Tobago, because while others have been looking and others have been concerned, we went even further. And our eyes, our team, and their boots are the first non-Petro Sucre boots on the Nabarima since these concerns were raised. And we have already shared, and we will continue to share our observations and our findings with our neighbors and our partners who have all been concerned. So there's a regional aspect to any major threat or major concern, and as I said, there's a degree of gratitude and appreciation for Trinidad and Tobago's very decisive and rational action in this matter, because we've now been able to provide concrete information to others who felt threatened by the perceived, I think the phrase has been the sinking vessel has been the favorite phrase. It is clearly not a sinking vessel based on Minister Khan's report.
Hi, it is Lukosi, the Caribou Environmental News Network. My question is, if the vessel is currently stable and we are not concerned about the vessel, why is Trinidad and Tobago then concerned about the speed of the transfer taking 35 days?
If you followed what I said the vessel itself has integrity. There is no list, there is no tilt, and it is stable. The double hull is intact, so the risk of an oil spillage from the tank, the storage tank, is very slim, if it at all exists. I did indicate, out of being very transparent to what the team saw, that everybody will feel much safer if the vessel is offloaded. Because the fact that I said the vessel is upright, it is stable, and the double hull is intact, the very fact that the vessel is filled with 1.3 million barrels of oil will have a little discomfort. So the Venezuelans are doing the proper thing by attempting to offload the vessel. Based on their current capacity, this is what they can do. All I'm saying is that the extended period for the offload in itself poses a slight risk, although the operation is deemed to be safe. But it has to continue for over 30 to 35 days. And we will continue to monitor that. I would have preferred to see a larger tanker come alongside and they do a ship-to-ship transfer, and in two loads, and in probably 2 to 3 days or 5 days, the vessel could have been emptied. But again, as I said, this is Venezuelan waters, it's Venezuelan territory, and that is the resources that are available to them. And all we can do is wish them well. But I just want to go on record as saying that the transfer process that is currently taking place, albeit slow, is considered very safe.
Thank you. And I just want to follow up question on that regard. Based on the fact that the vessel is now stable, would that then imply that some of the imagery that we would have seen on October 16th in the video posted by FFOS was either misleading, or that the tilt have been corrected within the past 4 days? Can you just shed some light on that, please?
Well, I can't shed any light on that. The light I have shed to this media conference is our team visited on Tuesday, and they have seen the vessel totally upright, no list, and it is very stable. The double wall is intact, and beyond that, I think we are in a fairly good space with Venezuelan authorities and us, because we are the collective sharing of the Gulf of Paria, and I am comforted by that. I have no comment to make on who posts what and what was the origin of the post.
Thank you.
Ministers, we have a question from Carla Bridgelal from Newsday. Will there be subsequent visits or monitoring to gauge the integrity of the vessel, and if so, when?
Well, both Minister Bong and myself indicated that one of the recommendations of the team is that if we can make a follow-up visit in about a month's time, obviously we will have to seek the approval of the Venezuelan authorities.
What I can say to add to what Minister Khan has already indicated is that as further evidence of the proactive nature of the government and the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, we have already initiated a request to the Venezuelan authorities looking ahead to that 1 month horizon recommended by our team of experts, and that request has already been transmitted to the Venezuelan authorities.
Thank you.
And that was a live broadcast of a press conference hosted by the Ministers of Energy and Energy Industries, Franklin Can,